interference and harmony. Opportunities for the meeting to broaden and deepen our understanding and thus and being challenged.
So, dear Thai, dear community, I know that we still have 5 minutes to start, but I think it's also nice to hear some song from Joe, probably, if you would like to offer something before we start the session while everybody is here. Maybe first you would like to unmute your microphone, and then after that, we enjoy your song.
Good morning, everyone. Morning, Brother Bartang. Lovely to see you. Can you hear me okay? You can, great. Well, hello, hi everyone. I think I've been occupying your screen this morning while you've been coming in. Nice to see the messages. So yeah, if you'd like to sing along to this one, it's got a very simple chorus. It's a song of my own called "Lay Down," and the chorus is lay down your hands and lay down your heart. Inspired by the poetry of Maya Angelou. The chorus goes, lay down your hands, lay down your heart. With me? Lay down your hands, lay down your heart. I imagine us all singing together. Oh, when you find your brother, oh, in the eyes of another one, like when our friends and others, they cross the lines we get stuck upon. Oh, when you throw your covers, oh, when you lay down your disguise, oh, when the one who suffers, yeah, they've got nowhere left to hide. Lay down your hands, lay down your heart. Lay down your hands, lay down your heart. Oh, when you see your sister, long lost before now, oh, when you know you missed her, and you both feel this somehow, and for the wells you wish her, oh, for the times you've been apart, may seem to the world a whisper, oh, but you know that it's a start to lay down your hands, lay down your heart. Lay down your hands, lay down your heart. When you feel your father, feel him in all his joy and pain, and you know that you've come after the journey on the same. Oh, when you hear your mother, oh, in the stories she told, oh, with her love for others, oh, in the hearts that we hold. Lay down your hands, lay down your heart. Lay down your hands, lay down your heart. One more. Lay down your hands, lay down your heart.
Thank you so much, Joe. So let us slowly start our session this morning, and probably we'll listen to Joe singing again. But so I would like to welcome everybody in this presentation of the Global Ethics 5 Mindfulness Training. And as usual in Plum Village, we would like to take some time to listen to the bell and just bring our mind, accompany our breathing, and just enjoy the in breath and enjoy the out breath and be present for each other. And it's so nice to be together here from all over the corner of the globe. Let us listen to the three sound of the bell and just enjoy the breathing together. Dear Thai, dear community, in Plum Village, our highest value is brotherhood, sisterhood, and probably also familyhood, as a family coming together. And this is something that is so precious, and it's also amazing to be able to feel like, hundreds of activists sitting here together building brotherhood and sisterhood. I think this is the one of the biggest happiness that we can offer to the world, to the earth, and to the humanity. And by having time just sit here together, we even don't know yet what we were gonna speak and we're gonna share. I myself very nervous at the moment, having presenting the Five Mindfulness Training without the panelists close to me. This is my first time doing this, and but yet I have confidence that we can spend our time together, observing our breathing and be present with each other. And yeah, so to celebrate our brotherhood and sisterhood, I would like again to invite our brother Joe to offer one more song for us to just enjoy. We have seen smiling faces on the screen through our eyes, and now also we want to spoil a little bit our ear, our mind, our heart to listen to a beautiful words from the song. Please, Joe.
Yeah, certainly. It's an interesting feeling, isn't it? You can't see the people, but you know they're there, and that makes me nervous. Feel the same thing. So I'd like to sing you a song. Another song of my own. that I first wrote when I started going to Wake Up London, and I got in touch with Ty's teaching about the island of the self and finding that place inside ourselves. I've been with that a lot when I've been making my notes for my panel presentation. So, and the chorus goes like this. There's a place and there are trees. Put the right settings on my computer. There's a place and there are trees there, and there's water running through. Close your eyes, child, and find that place in you. If you didn't know this, the teaching is inspired from a poem of Ty's that he wrote for young activists that were helping with the effort in Vietnam, as many villages were being bombed and rebuilt and bombed and rebuilt. He encouraged people to try and find their center, try and find a place in themselves where they could act from that was peaceful. Where do you go when you're on your own and you're far from home? Where do you go? And where do you rest when everything's a mess? When all is more the less? Where do you rest? In the chorus, there's a place. There's a place and there are trees there, and there's water running through. Close your eyes, child, and find that place in you. And when you need shelter for your sleep, a roof for your relief, when you need, where do you find trust in troubled times, space between the lines? Where do you find? There's a place and there are trees there, and there's water running through. Close your eyes, child, and find that place in you. There's a place and there are trees there, and there's water around the roots. Close your eyes, child, and find that place in you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe, and we are very happy to see everybody here. So this morning we have 5 bodhisattvas, 5 practitioners that has been with us in Plum Village for quite some times now. It's quite a long time actually, and practicing the five mindfulness training, and also engage themselves in several activism, and also building the sangha in each area. And 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 this morning we would like to invite these brothers and sisters to share about their experience, their challenge, and their as insight from practicing the five mindfulness training. So, but please allow me to share a little bit. Yeah. So yeah. So in our daily life, we know that we have happiness and we have also suffering, as Brother Foplai has shared at the first Dharma talk that we had. And in Plum Village, we practice mindfulness, and this mindfulness has the element of concentration and also has the element of insight, which is we practice in order to look deeply, so that we can have the view that allow us to have compassion in our heart. And that insight is to see the oneness of everything, is the inter-being nature of everything in the world. That we see that any human being, whatever color, whatever background, we are human being, and we interact. And also, we also not only interact with each other, but we also interact with our environment, with the plant, with the animals, and with the earth. And when we look deeply, we see also the earth is ourself, and we are also the earth. So that it helps us to go beyond what is living being and what is matter. This is also what we listen through our letter to Mother Earth. We want to see that our Mother Earth is also part of us. Yeah, so, but yet, as a human being, we know that our suffering has a root, and most of our root is come from ignorance. We have an automatic pilot responses in our mind. So sometimes we get anxious, we don't know why. Sometimes we have fear, we don't know why. But yet, each of us, we are we want to have a feeling of happiness. We want to have joy, and we want to have compassion. And as an activist, the work is pretty heavy and pretty big responsibility, and this is to think about society, to think about the earth. This is quite a big things, and sometimes we have to face some strong emotion and strong feeling. And and as we know that nowadays also in the world, we need more people that know how to take care of themselves, and to know how to generate joy and happiness in the midst of all the crisis that is happening, either from our ecological aspect, from the world, and in humanity, and all the things that is happening in the present moment. We need to have a way to take care of ourselves, so that we can be present, and we can also accompany each other to go through all of the difficulty, uh, and also have joy and happiness in our daily life. So in Plum Village, the mindfulness is a path, it's not a tools. So it is a path for us to generate compassion, understanding, and love. And as an activist, action is one of our principal things that we do. It's a principal things that we do. And as a human being, we can produce our action through our thinking, through our speech, and through our action, physical action. And sometimes this action can contribute to happiness, and sometimes also this action can contribute to suffering. And so we want to have access to the roots of our action, which is our mind. So we want to kind of come back to ourselves and to take care of our action and to be mindful of how we think, how we speak, and how we act. And this has been from the Buddha's time. We have been proposed to take a look, to be mindful of the action through something we call mindfulness training. We call Shila in the in the old time, and at that time there are hundreds of lay practitioners visiting the monastery of the Buddha. And at that time the Buddha shared that um, by practicing the five mindfulness training, there is a way to be happy in the present moment. We are free and happy in the present moment because we are able to have an access to our action, to recognize, to embrace, and to transform. So this is something for me is a hope, and is a joy also to know that we can be our own how you call it, master on ourselves, to have access to our own mind, to know how to take care of our body and also our mind. And the five mindfulness training is a proposal for all of us to take a look, to study, and to put it into practice. And we see how this training can help us to be there, first of all, for ourselves, for our family, and for the world and for the society. So I will read the introduction, and after that I will and then I will allow or invite the brothers and sisters on the panel to introduce themselves also, and after that we will listen to their sharing. So the five mindfulness training represent the Buddhist vision for a global spirituality and ethic. They are a concrete expression of Buddha's teaching on the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path, the path of right understanding and true love, leading to healing, transformation, and happiness for ourselves and for the world. To practice the five mindfulness trainings is to cultivate the insight of interbeing, or right view, which can remove all discrimination, intolerance, anger, fear, and despair. If we live according to the five mindfulness trainings, we are already on the path of a bodhisattva, on the path of being conscious. Knowing that we are on the path, we are not lost in confusion about our life in the present or fear about the future. And for me, this is very important for us now. We know we heard a lot that we don't have enough time. We know that we are rushing with the time, and therefore this is very helpful for us to anchor ourselves in the present moment and to find what element that still can nourish ourselves. And this ethic is not a set of rules, it's a training. and that's why we call this ethic global spiritual ethics, is because this is something that we want to have, which is compassion, which is love, which is understanding. I think these three things, it does not matter who we are, it does not matter which religion we are, it does not matter what color we are, where we from. Each of us, I think we want also to be able to generate compassion, love, and understanding. And therefore, this training is beyond rules, it's beyond morality, it's beyond what is right and what is wrong. It's about coming back to oneself and taking care of oneself. So that is from me. I think it's enough to share. And I would like to invite one by one panelist to just share, to introduce yourself, to share maybe what is your name, where you come from, and since when you get in touch with Plum Village practice, and when you receive the 5 mindfulness training, and also what is your Dharma name. In Plum Village we have Dharma names, like kind of like a name for us to practice, and and then also a little bit as sharing about the activism that you are engaged with, if you have one. So roughly that is my question for you, to introduce yourself. And so I would like to invite first Joe to introduce yourself.
Dear Thai, dear Sangha, thank you, Batang. My name is Joe Holtaway, and I come from England. I was born in Cornwall, the seaside. I live in London these days. And I first got in touch with the practice. A friend of mine lent me one of Thai's books. And I also heard Thai's name on a talk from Eckhart Tolle, and that led me to find the monastics who were doing a university talk. This was back in 2011, and then I got in touch with the Wake Up London Sangha in 2011, and I took the trainings in 2012 when Thai was in England doing some events in London, and then a retreat. And I was given the name, and it was by Brother Bao Tik and Sister Hee Niem, Sister True Dedication, and Brother Jewel was given the name Brother Harmonious Stream of the Heart. I put a lot in my aspiration letter about music and my guitar playing, which I wanted to continue to do more on. So that was very kind. They gave me that name, which I love. And field of activism, I think, for many years I would have said it was peace activism, and I think that's broadened over time. I think it's still peace activism, but I think it's taken in many different elements. Environmental. I think I work with people seeking asylum in the UK, and also more recently white awareness, and my position as a white guy in the world of activism is something that is also encompassed, I think, in my broadly speaking peace activism. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. And the next one, I would like to invite Rahina to introduce yourself.
Dear Thai, dear family, my name is Rahina. I was born in South Africa, but I now live in the land in the UK, the land that brought some of my ancestors to Africa and took some of my ancestors away from Africa. I was first exposed to Thich Nhat Hanh in a book in the early 1990s when I was involved in activism. But I really truly came to the Plum Village practices, I think in 1998, when I came to this country. Took me a long time to receive the mindfulness trainings, maybe because I didn't think I was worthy enough. So I took it in 2012, same as Joe. And I received the Dharma name, transforming love of the heart. And I joined the order in 2016 and received the order name True Deep Source. Something that was a bit of unhappiness for me, the name, but as Sister Chanduk might say, relate about my discussions with her. I know, Brother Baotang, you said talk about field of activism. I guess I could say that I started with race and social justice, but I think I call myself a humanist now. So if there's any action or activism, I'd like to say humanism or planetism, because I don't feel anymore that racial and social justice can be separated from earth, environmental, climate justice. They're all part of the same thing. And so quite a lot of the work I'm doing is, one, about racial healing and racial harmony, both within the Buddhist community and outside, doing some work with Buddhists across traditions in the service of racial healing, but also more and more in the community that I come from, in the rural areas in KwaZulu-Natal, most impacted by colonialism, climate change, and the heritage and legacy of apartheid. So that's it from me, I think, quite long. Thank you for listening, and Rahina bowing out.
Thank you, Rahina. And the next one is Leah. If you introduce yourself.
Dear Thai, dear Sangha, I'm Leah, she, her pronouns. I'm in Berlin and from Berlin, Germany. I got in touch with the Plum Village practice very early on, quite early on in my life. I just went to a bookstore. I knew Buddhism was my thing, and I bought 3 books, and one of those books was Thai's book. And there I found the 5 Mindfulness Trainings right away, and I thought, this is just great. This is awesome. This is engaged and it's modern. So I'm gonna, and it like had a lot to do with my ethics, which I thought those were good guidelines to sum up what I was looking for. And I only had the chance to receive the 5 mindfulness trainings in 2017 when I was living in Plum Village, because I'd never had the chance to join a ceremony before. And I got the name Luminous Patience of the Heart, which I wasn't so happy with either. I can see that, Rahina, that sometimes the name is maybe difficult, and at the same time it's true. So it's a good practice, and I like the luminous part of it, especially luminous patience. What field of activism am I engaged in? So we're a group of Sangha friends who are engaged in XR, Berlin, Germany. And we just figured out, as we're all from the Sangha, and we're trying also to bring mindfulness practice into that field of activism, or to help support it. We're the Earth Holders Berlin, so we kind of join into that stream of the Earth Holders, the Earth Holder community. And I recently got in touch with the 5 Mindfulness Trainings social and racial justice version through our Rainbow Sangha, and I was so inspired. I wanted to translate them into German. So I'm excited. We did that now, and we're going to practice with those 2, which is also a very great appendix, or like broadening the 5 MTs that we're going to present today. Also, in like more direction of activism, as for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. And the next one is Kareem. You want to hear?
Dear community, funnily enough, I think maybe about 10 years ago, I was on a retreat in a different tradition, and I saw a book by Tai in the library, and I picked it up. But the book was Understanding the Mind, and I actually found it quite difficult to get into that book. And now that I've read many more books of Tai, I see that was possibly one of the most complex. But luckily, in maybe 2012, there was a flash mob on the beach of the Thames in London, and that's when I met the Wake Up London community. Eventually, I started going, and I heard more from Tai, and then in 2013, I think I took the Five Mindfulness Trainings. I received the name Fulfilling Wisdom of the Heart. I was okay with that name, actually. I should say I'm living in Brighton in the UK. I grew up in Essex in the UK. And I've been involved to an extent in different types of activism over the years. But most recently, it's been engaging with Extinction Rebellion on the topic of climate change and climate justice.
Thank you, Karim. And last but not least, Eva. I'm so happy to see Eva here.
I'm so happy to be here. Dear Tai, dear Sangha, I'm joining you today from Gaborone, Botswana, where I've been living and working for the past 20 years. But I was born and raised in San Diego, in the Golden State of California. Both sides of my ancestors are from Mexico, and my father's people are from the Tarahumara and the Copper Canyon. And my mother's side is from Baja California with mixed French descent. I first encountered Tai when I was a student at UCLA in 1989, and I just started studying and reading every book that I could find of his. And it really wasn't until 10 years later that I actually took refuge in the mindfulness trainings in 1999, and I was given the name Compassionate Relaxation of the Heart. And I became a member of the Order of Inner Being in 2012, and I was gifted with the name Chan Han Bi, meaning true compassionate action, or compassion in action. And I was ordained as a Dharma teacher in 2018. So I've been an HIV activist and specialist clinician for all these years, and I've been involved really in every aspect of ART treatment and care for advanced HIV patients. I also serve as the board chair for the International Treatment Preparedness Coalition, which is one of the largest HIV activist organizations globally. And we do work on expanding access to antiretroviral medications and improving medical care, medical services around the world. It's known as ITPC. And I just recently completed my yoga teacher training. So now I'm also a yoga activist. And I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, so dear Tai, dear community, let us listen to one sound of the bell to just, remind ourselves that we are having a very wonderful moment in this time. So dear Thai, dear Sangha, let us listen with mindfulness to each sharing that will be presented by our panelists. And let us practice also like deep listening. We just need to sit there, enjoy our moment, relax our body, enjoying our breathing, and while we listen to each sharing, because each sharing is an expression of experience that our friends have in practicing the five mindfulness training. So first of all, I would like to invite Joe to read the first mindfulness training and share about your experience. And this is something that quite hard because it's so big. That the training is so big, so vast, that sometimes it's so hard to share in a short time. And in this opportunity, I would like to kind of challenge each panelist to share like 5 minutes. I don't know if it is possible, but let us do some effort. But at the same time, we share it relaxingly and take our time. Yeah. So we will have one sound of the bell to start again. So Joe can prepare yourself and come back to your breath.
Dear Thai, dear Sangha.
So after 5 minutes, I will make another half sound to make a sign. Yeah. Thank you. Let's please, Joe.
Thanks, Baotang. Okay, reverence for life. Aware of the suffering caused by the destruction of life, I'm committed to cultivating the insight of interbeing and compassion and learning ways to protect the lives of people, animals, plants, and minerals. I'm determined not to kill, not to let others kill, and not to support any act of killing in the world, in my thinking or in my way of life. Seeing that harmful actions arise from anger, fear, greed, and intolerance, which in turn come from dualistic and discriminative thinking, I will cultivate openness, non-discrimination, and non-attachment to views in order to transform violence, fanaticism, and dogmatism in myself and in the world. Well, thank you so much. Yes, I want to first acknowledge that there's quite an irony in me sharing first, because I wanted to talk about my awareness, and so I'm sorry for being the white man that speaks at the beginning of the presentations, but I also want to bring that into my sharings. So I'm a trainee, well, I will be later in the year, a trainee chaplain with the Quaker community. I've been involved in the Quakers for a number of years alongside Plum Village. And I wanted to read something, a Quaker quote also about reverence for life, which is a phrase that's also used in the Quaker community. So I'm just going to pull that up. Quaker meeting is about meeting in silence and sharing from the heart. And we say this, we say that we try and bring reverence and harmony and encourage opportunities for all in the meeting to broaden and deepen their knowledge and understanding. This might include learning about the roots and foundations of our faith, other faiths, and being challenged by new ideas. So involved in activism over the last few years, I was writing down some notes yesterday, and I thought, I'm going to talk about some mistakes I've made and how that relates to reverence for life. I thought that would be an interesting place to go with. And the first, I'm going to try and get 3 stories into 5 minutes. So the first story is that I work with the Quaker children in our Quaker community, and I run or help to run some groups about peace education broadly. And we were doing, so this is mistake story number 1. We were doing a week on Black Lives Matter. The protests were happening in London, and it was very prevalent at the time. And so we decided we would do a morning on that. And I thought what I'm going to do is look at some history, look at the history of slavery, and bring that into the beginning of the meeting. And the meeting is, we have about between 4 and 8 families. I think we had about 5 that day. And so I started to talk about the history of slavery for some of these children. They wouldn't have been aware of this before, or maybe it was kind of coming, back again into their awareness. And we have one family where the father is Black African and the mum is white American, and the daughter, the oldest daughter, became really agitated by my presentation and was asking her mum, is this going to happen to me? Like, there was these slides about people being taken across the ocean in boats, and it just became so intense that I had to just stop and say, I think, or one of the mums said, I think we have to stop this now, and we have to look at something else that's going to happen in this space. And I thought, and in that moment, I kind of made these plans, and it was kind of unfolding that this was just the wrong way to do this. The sister of the girl is very charismatic and started talking about unicorns, and that seemed to calm the whole situation down. And then we started talking about diversity instead. And then another child from another family whose mother is from India was about 11 years old, and she kind of found this story very funny, that her mum works for the NHS, and they'd had a diversity training at the NHS, which was all people that wanted to come to it, and it was run by a white man. And this 11-year-old girl kind of got that this story was very funny and was telling us about it. And then I realized in that moment that, like, yeah, I'm that guy. In this situation, I felt like I'm delivering this story and about the slavery, and I kind of mentioned that, and and it was, we went on in the weeks afterwards to think about ways of like well-being and how to share our stories. But it was a real moment for me, I think, of as all the stories are, about learning how to listen. So the second story was I run a singing group at the local centre, which is the day centre for asylum seekers in Southwark in South London. And I started, I remember I was quite nervous because I was quite new to the group, and I went in and we don't have a printer at home, we didn't at the time, and I'd handwritten out some Plum Village songs and some peace songs, and I kind of collated this folder of music, and I went in and we kind of sat in a circle after lunch. And the first song was a song that many people will know, which is Bella Mama. And so I handed out my handwritten sheets, and then I started singing this song. And we got through the first verse, and then one person there who was from Kenya said, we don't sing this song quite the same as this. We've got these other words for this, and it means this. And the song kind of fell apart, really. And someone else said, yeah, but over in Uganda we sing this and it means this. And soon all my song sheets that I'd so carefully written out were turned over, and there was maps of Africa being drawn on the back of these. And then other people were saying, we've got songs about the earth in our culture. And over the next kind of 20 minutes, we let go of the I've got my house sound of the bell coming. I had to let go of my whole session, as the whole session just became really about kind of this cultural sharing about songs and peace songs. And then right at the end, one of the people at the session turned the sheets over and said, wow, look, there's all these lyrics on the back of these sheets, where are they from? And I said, they were some songs that I'd kind of written out for us. And then they all started laughing that they'd been drawing on my lyric sheets. Again, another moment that things change so quickly. And that life is just always there, trying to come through when you let it through. Last story, a friend of mine, I've made it my kind of wish to talk to people who are on the streets around us. And one person who I met a couple of years ago was from Lithuania, and I knew him for about a year and a half, 2 years, and then sadly passed away from an accident. I realized at the time that I had the possibility to try and get hold of the ashes, and I had a phone. A lot of his friends didn't, and
I managed to get hold of them, and we held a service in the local park. And I thought, on this occasion, you know, I could take a real role here and do a lot of offering, but I don't want to. I'll just try and like get people together and just see what happens. We lit a candle, we scattered the ashes, which was a very moving experience, and then we sat in a lot of silence. And on this occasion, it kind of went the other way, and someone came up to me at the end, and a kind of charismatic friend of my friend who passed away, and said, "Come on, Joe, give us a prayer. Can you say something?" And I kind of wasn't really prepared, or wasn't sure what to say. But in that moment, I remembered the song "No Coming, No Going," and I said something like, "I think I'm in you and you're in me, and I think we're connected in that way. And you know, maybe there's no coming and no going, and it's yeah." And so that was a moment, I think, like all these stories, and I just finished with these couple of sentences where there's so much life, and there's so much life always trying to come through. I've realized if I can often just maybe prepare sometimes, but also be ready for my preparations to be turned over, to be written on, to be changed. And realizing that there's a history really of life being dictated or kind of managed by people who have privilege and power, and how rich it can be when we let that go and let life speak to us through the many voices that are present in our world. Thank you very much.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Joe. And let us listen to. So thank you, Joe, for sharing your experience and your story. We're sorry that the time is so short. We missed some story from you, but we will listen to it maybe later. And let us listen to one sound of the bell before we continue to the next training. Yeah, so I would like to invite Rahina to share the second mindfulness training.
The second mindfulness training, true happiness, aware of the suffering caused by exploitation, social justice, stealing, and oppression. I'm committed to practicing generosity in my thinking, speaking, and acting. I'm determined not to steal and not to possess anything that should belong to others. And I will share my time, energy, and material resources with those who I need. I will practice looking deeply to see that the happiness and suffering of others are not separate from my own happiness and suffering. That true happiness is not possible without understanding and compassion, and that running after wealth and fame, power and sensual pleasures can bring much suffering and despair. I'm aware that happiness depends on my mental attitude and not on external conditions, and that I can live happily in the present moment simply by remembering that I already have more than enough conditions to be happy. I'm committed to practicing right livelihood so that I can help reduce the suffering of living beings on Earth and reverse the process of global warming. Dear Thai, dear Earth, dear Sister Chan Kong, monastic family, and dear community, and of course, dear ancestors. I think I'm a bit nervous because sharing is always so vulnerable, so I'm clutching onto Thai right now to give me some courage. I think I'm going to start also with where I come from. I was brought up in apartheid South Africa. where people were separated by race in all areas of daily living, which only legally ended in 1994. I was involved in the activism for democracy in South Africa. Some people called it terrorism. So I grew up very simply fearing the power that white people had over my life. I also wanted to be like them. I saw being white could offer me all the conditions for happiness. They had access to the best jobs, land, houses. They all seemed to be always happy. When I came to the UK as a result of my education and work, I could now access some of the privileges the system afforded me as a result of my own assimilation. The conditions for my happiness that I saw in my childhood seemed so accessible. What this really resulted in was really a constant improvement of what I perceived of as my deficiencies, and the deficiencies that could be addressed through the consumption of training courses, clothes, exercise, books, technology. Getting access and acquiring all these things external to myself seemed to be the necessary means to achieve the outcome, this outcome that I thought happiness. But the temporary high of accumulation just seems to be constantly fueled by ongoing consumption. And then I reached a point when the pain could no longer be held psychologically, and some kind of dissonance emerged from where I came from and what I was becoming. So I left my senior level job working for a prestigious consulting company and took time to connect with my mindfulness practices, coming back to sitting, earth touchings, and connecting with my root heritage, or should I say my root heritages, Africa and India. As I practiced, I kept coming back to this concept, a Zulu concept common to the land I grew up in, called Ubuntu. I am because we are. We are because I am. And I started seeing that my happiness or unhappiness was related to the relationship I had with the I and the we in Ubuntu. When my I is inflated, I see how I cling to my views, my judgments, my perceptions of being right, my hurts or other feelings, irrespective of whether they're wholesome or unwholesome. Usually it means I'm clinging to being right, to knowing it all, hanging on to my grievances that I know better, or my anger is righteous because I'm on racism, because I'm browner, and therefore it's more acceptable and more palatable. Trying hard to please or to be perfect, and sometimes even just being caught in despair because my ego is so inflated. And then I notice when the we is inflated, I'm putting too much energy elsewhere at the expense of my well-being. And sometimes when I look really closely, I see that the we that I think I'm investing in is really the inflated disguise of my I, of my ego, that I am doing something for the benefit, and in the meantime, it's really my ego. And as I'm practicing, I'm learning that when I take care of my strong emotions and hurts, there's some insight. And usually, afterwards, there's some ripple effect in my well-being. And as I'm sitting over and over again with all of this, I'm just learning more and more that the type of energy I bring to my work and activism is important. My intention, what I do and how I do it, can be wholesome, genuine we, or unwholesome, full of I. So for me, saving the world, I think, while building and growing the collective with unwholesome energy, is not acting from what Sister Chan Kong called yesterday, my highest purpose, nor is it respectful to the ancestors from whom I manifest. And recently, being inflamed by the growing visible realities of systemic oppression, injustice, climate crisis, and the legacy impacts of COVID, I started adding the following to my practices of dancing and, yes, Brother Fablai, I talk to trees, and creative cooking so that I can cultivate joy. So as I take my morning walk, I visualize walking with me all those who represent to me the archetypal energies of loving kindness, compassion, and gratitude. All the energies I want to infuse in my day, manifested in Thai, Martin Luther King, Albertina Sisulu, Steve Biko, Mandela. I take them with me. And then I live the day with 2 imagined balloons, one on each shoulder. You can guess which one is in which shoulder. One for wholesomeness and the other for unwholesomeness. And as I go through my day, on the basis of actions, intentions, and thoughts, I add to one of the balloons. And each night, I give gratitude to the insights of what is released from each balloon. And then I start the process again, every day, cultivating the wholesome energy over and over again. Letting go, learning, being grateful to everything that comes to me. So I think I call this activism humanism, because I'm relearning to become human, taking care of my love and my rage, and opening my heart to those with whom I disagree the most. I know that when I live in harmony with Ubuntu and the grace of the land and ancestors I come from, I'm happy. So for me, that is living in balance, 50% me, 50% we, splitting my financial resources, my time and energy between growing and and serving community here and in South Africa, and my own personal well-being. So I feel that's how I'm cultivating true happiness, inside, out. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Regina, for your sharing. Let us listen to one sound of the bell before we continue to the next training. The next mindfulness training is True Love. Please, Leah, share your experience.
True love. Aware of the suffering caused by sexual misconduct, I'm committed to cultivating responsibility and learning ways to protect the safety and integrity of individuals, couples, families, and society. Knowing that sexual desire is not love, and that sexual activity motivated by craving always harms myself as well as others, I'm determined not to engage in sexual relations without true love and a deep, long-term commitment made known to my family and friends. I will do everything in my power to protect children from sexual abuse and to prevent couples and families from being broken by sexual misconduct. Seeing that body and mind are in unison, I'm committed to learning appropriate ways to take care of my sexual energy and cultivating loving kindness, compassion, joy, and inclusiveness, the 4 basic elements of true love, for my greater happiness and the greater happiness of others. Practicing true love, we know that we will continue beautifully into the future. So this is the third mindfulness training called True Love. And maybe 1 week ago, I received an email. Hey, Leah, do you want to share about the 5 mindfulness trainings? Well, 4 of them are already taken, so you're left with True Love. And I thought, that's interesting. Might be might be a coincidence, but I guess sometimes it can also be difficult. It can also be a very intimate sharing about true love because it's about sexual activity and this thing about the long-term commitment, which might be for people of my age nowadays different and in some ways more difficult. And I was reflecting on what spoke to me right at the moment in this mindfulness training, and I think it is in a way I'm committed to learning appropriate ways to take care of my sexual energy and cultivating loving kindness, compassion, joy, and inclusiveness. I remember there was one time I was in Lower Hamlet and we were sharing the 5 mindfulness trainings, and one elderly lady, she asked the nun, there is this sentence about taking care of my sexual energy, appropriate ways of taking care. What does that mean? And I think the nun had a little trouble answering that, maybe because also in different cultures you don't share that openly, especially when you're a nun. But it struck me because I thought, yes, what is an appropriate way of taking care of my sexual energy? And so I've been reflecting on that, and I also in my identity as a Buddhist practitioner, I rather tend to cut off my sexual energy, which means that arousal is something physical, and I can actually mentally I still can control that, or I am aware of it, but I don't need to follow it. So it is something that is kind of basic, and I tend to suppress my sexual energy then rather than to enjoy it, because there is also joy in the basic elements of love, and also cultivating loving kindness. So I thought, okay, for me, maybe it's my task to cultivate more of the elements of true love when it comes to ways of taking care of my sexual energy. And especially, let's say, now in Corona times when we're so isolated, and it is quite hard to date, I have to say, because how are you gonna do that? I mean, do you meet outside? What about intimacy when you in Corona times? So I've had that huge thing in my head, thinking, oh my God, I want to date Corona safe. I want to date in according to the 3rd mindfulness training, True Love. What am I gonna do? And I felt that it was making things so complicated. I was getting into my head, and I also started to. There was a voice coming that started to tell me how I was not doing it correctly, how I was maybe thinking of having like a one-night stand, which is not true love and is not in accordance to the 3rd mindfulness training. So it is, again, this thing about reflecting on it and being also true to yourself. I mean, also honest. True love for me includes honesty and seeing what is there. And in a way, of course, there's inclusiveness in true love, and that means there's inclusiveness in accepting what is happening inside of me, and especially also this sexual part of me, which tends to be overlooked, I think. And to include this and also use it as a vital energy in the broadest sense. This is my vital energy. And I can, of course, use it for sex, and I can connect it with craving, which is rather a mental thing, but I can also connect it with experiencing life through me and experiencing the earth's energy through me. And so I came to I was reflecting more on this, and I thought, what does this third training mean for me as an activist? And I thought, wow, okay, if I look at it this way, then for me, it means that as activists, we can learn to be true lovers because we are in a relationship with the earth. And it should be, if we are really truly in love with the earth and what we're doing as activism, then it is a long-term commitment made known to my family and friends, if it's safe to make it known. And it also includes this protecting what you love, protecting the relationships that you're in, and cultivating your relationship with the earth. And there is one thought that I had, like maybe a kind of insight. I was thinking about those feelings of hopelessness and despair that many of us experience, and me myself, I also can relate to that. And I thought, okay, in a way, hopelessness and despair are ways of abandonment, of abandoning, because you think it's helpless. And if you fall into that, basically, you're abandoning what you love. And true love means not abandoning what you love, but staying with it and connecting with the things you do. And then I thought, why am I doing this activism? And I thought, for me, it's not a question of why I do it and what I do, but how I do it. And I think those four elements of true love, loving kindness, compassion, joy, and inclusiveness can help us as activists and me to sustain this and to come back to my aspiration of also living true love in what I do and how I deal with myself in that process. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah, for sharing your experience and your practice. And the next one will be Kareem. And let us to listen to one sound of the bell. So the fourth mindfulness training is about loving speech and deep listening.
Loving speech and deep listening. Aware of the suffering caused by unmindful speech and the inability to listen to others, I am committed to cultivating loving speech and compassionate listening in order to relieve suffering and to promote reconciliation and peace in myself and among other people, ethnic and religious groups, and nations. Knowing that words can create happiness or suffering, I am committed to speaking truthfully, using words that inspire confidence, joy, and hope. When anger is manifesting in me, I am determined not to speak. I will practice mindful breathing and walking in order to recognize and look deeply into my anger. I know that the roots of anger can be found in my wrong perceptions and lack of understanding of the suffering in myself and in the other person. I will speak and listen in a way that can help myself and the other person transform suffering and see the way out of difficult situations. I am determined not to spread news that I do not know to be certain, and not to utter words that can cause division or discord. I will practice right diligence to nourish my capacity for understanding, love, joy, and inclusiveness, and gradually transform anger, violence, and fear that lie deep in my consciousness. So I'm quite relieved that when you take the mindfulness trainings, there's no like pass or fail. There's no like scorecard, because if I had marks on this training, I would get a lot of black marks. There's a lot of times when my speech is not so mindful. Maybe that's why I was inspired to share about it. Brother Bao Tang encouraged us to pick out a word or phrase from the training, because there is a lot there. And the phrase that came to me, what I thought to pick out was, I know the roots of anger can be found in my wrong perceptions and lack of understanding of the suffering in myself and in the other person. Now, I don't know, I feel a bit uncomfortable to admit this, but I think when I've been engaged in activism, if I think about the anger I've like viscerally felt and that has affected me, I've actually felt more anger towards fellow activists than I have like viscerally towards the court, the court, the oil companies or the corrupt politicians. I've not liked those things, but it's been times, where there's someone has. There was one example where someone quite prominent who was involved in XR, and he was going on TV and representing XR a lot. And then in 2019, right after a big rebellion action, there was an election, and he was, in my opinion, like he was supporting maybe a very a candidate that had lots of great credentials, but didn't have a chance to win, and was going to jeopardize the chance of another candidate who supported Extinction Rebellion. And for me, it was just, I couldn't understand this way, and that anger, it actually pulled me away from being engaged for a little while. It really had this possibility to change how I related. I realized, and I can't always get to that point where I see that I'm wrong. I still sometimes hang on to that, but I think I'm right about this. But at least to see, okay, how is this other person motivated? How could their actions make sense to them? Even if I'm not quite ready yet, one day maybe I'll zoom out even further to get an even broader perspective. But and I've seen a lot of conflict in the activism I've been involved in. So just trying to understand where my anger comes from, where other people's motivations are coming from, what could have caused the situation, I feel it's been quite important. And then the other aspect of this, of taking care of the anger when I speak, is when there is people I really disagree with. There was someone quite close to me who was telling me in the last year that they thought COVID was a conspiracy theory, which is not the view I hold. And that, again, that was like a real, I had to make a real effort to try and ask them questions, to try and find out where they were coming from, because I kind of knew that if I just told them that they were what I thought, my perception was that it was wrong. But if I just told them that, I knew that that would like firm them into that view. One person I have been very inspired on that front is a filmmaker called Dia Khan, and she made documentaries about the far right in America, kind of very racist groups. And just by kind of being with them and trying to see what's going on, some of them really change. And so even from little things like, I've tried to avoid it, but the times I've got drawn into a kind of Twitter argument is to still speak to that person with respect and try and, even though I might vehemently disagree. So yeah, it's a work in progress, this training, but yeah, I think it's an important one.
Thank you, Karim, for the sharing about the how to take care of our speech, and also how to take care of the way we listen, how we listen. And the fifth mindfulness training is about nourishment and healing. Let us listen to one sound of the bell.
The fifth mindfulness training, nourishment and healing. Aware of the suffering caused by unmindful consumption, I am committed to cultivating good health, both physical and mental, for myself, my family, and my society by practicing mindful eating, drinking, and consuming. I will practice looking deeply into how I consume the 4 kinds of nutriments, namely edible foods, sense impressions, volition, and consciousness. I am determined not to gamble or to use alcohol, drugs, or any other products which contain toxins, such as certain websites, electronic games, TV programs, films, magazines, books, and conversations. I will practice coming back to the present moment to be in touch with the refreshing, healing, and nourishing elements in me and around me, not letting regrets and sorrow drag me back into the past or letting anxieties, fear, or craving pull me out of the present moment. I am determined not to cover up loneliness, anxiety, or other sufferings by losing myself in consumption. I will contemplate inner being and consume in a way that preserves peace, joy, and well-being in my body and consciousness, and in the collective body and consciousness of my family, my society, and the earth. Dear Thai, dear Sangha, dear Brother Baotang, Brother Baotang did ask us to choose a word or a phrase or a sentence for this mindfulness training sharing. So I looked deeply into the fifth mindfulness training, and I chose the word refreshing. And I chose that because one of the descriptions I love most about our practice is the one that says the Dharma is like a cool, refreshing breeze. And when you live in Southern Africa, a cool, refreshing breeze is really helpful. And it's wonderful to feel that way because it didn't really start out that way for me with my practice. The first time I really sobbed at Plum Village, really sobbed, was in 2001. And Thai was teaching us about the 3 doors of liberation: signlessness, emptiness, and aimlessness. I understand more clearly now that my dog is coughing. I'm sorry for that. He's an old dog. He's a smooth hair fox terrier, and he's my best friend. So anyway, he's here with us. Anyway, I understand more now that the path of a bodhisattva has no beginning and no end, and no particular goal. That Thai taught us life is not a destination, it's a path. But back then, when I heard the word aimlessness, I just cried. I sobbed because I thought there's just no way I can ever become aimless. I was just too driven. I was too ambitious. And I was such a go. I was always in the future. I was always looking ahead. I was always thinking what I could do, or what problem I could solve, how I could do things. And the truth is, I'm still quite a bit of a go-go bird, but it's a bit different now, thank goodness. And what I've learned, and unfortunately, or I don't know, I'm one of those people that tends to learn the hard way. But what I've learned is that rushing towards the future isn't very refreshing. And piling on more and more responsibilities on myself also isn't very refreshing. And exhausting myself is absolutely not refreshing. So Thai and our practice has really helped me to experience and cultivate the ability to be in the present moment, where true nourishment and healing is possible. Because by cultivating our ability to come back to the present moment, we can begin to come to terms with ourselves and find out what we really, really need, what our bodies really need in any particular situation. So I sometimes think that the fifth mindfulness training can be as intimidating as the concept of aimlessness, because sometimes when you read it, it seems like there's so many do's and don'ts. Every single thing can be a unwholesome avenue. But as I worked with my practice and deepened my practice in the mindfulness trainings, I've also learned that all good judgment comes out of the present moment. So the training isn't meant to put ourselves into a vicious cycle of self-condemnation, because we had a drink or we smoked a cigarette or we, drove ourselves or ran ourselves ragged. But the mindfulness training for me really is about staying in the present zone, staying in the present moment, where everything becomes possible. Even overcoming our most difficult habit energies, our most difficult addictions. And in my case, that has always been running. But whatever challenge, whichever word or phrase in that mindfulness training makes you go, it's not about judging yourself for that, but exploring that, developing curiosity about that. And so I really learned for myself that even when I'm caring for my patients, that it is the refreshing presence that I can bring to my encounter that will really support myself and them from self-harm and help me and them to love ourselves and to just let go and ease up on ourselves for 10 minutes, just let go. And let go of the narratives and let go of the troubles in the world and let go of all of the injustice of it all sometimes, just so I can come back to myself and remember my breath and remember the wonders of life, remember the blue sky, right? And, in Botswana, we have 595 different kinds of birds. I listen, And I'm not saying we should stop caring. And I was reading some quotes by Elie Wiesel, who warned us that the only evil that we really can have is indifference. But now I know that as bodhisattvas, it's really about cultivating the beauty inside ourselves, and the beauty and tenderness within ourselves that makes our work possible. Because as Buddha taught, it's our hearts that are the true island of our refuge. And so if I'm able to find that within myself and stop running and slow down, it's always there for me. So when people say, how can you do this work, Ava? How can you be in the clinic? How can you be there with COVID surging the way it is? I know that I can find that place within my heart that's always a cool breeze. It's always there for me to return to. And it helps me to know what my limits are. And it helps me to protect myself and to protect other people. So it doesn't matter whether you're attending a COVID patient or you're having a conversation with somebody who you completely disagree with. What matters is cultivating our own ability to come back to ourselves and meet those situations with what I've learned in yoga: a strong back, and always an open heart. Thank you.
Let us listen to one sound of the bell before we wrap up our session today. Dear community, for me in this present moment I have a lot of joy to be able to sit together. I have Brother Chen E behind me, help me to invite the bell, and beside me also is not in the camera, but Brother Duk Nim is here also to help operating the session. And thanks to our friends also that presenting the Five Mindfulness Training. It was, it's very inspiring for me to listen every time. That's why I really enjoy to present the Five Mindfulness Training, because every time I listen to the sharing, I feel nourished and I have more confidence and to continue on the path of practice of mindfulness, concentration, and insight as a monk is also a kind of activism, and sometimes it's very hard to maintain that aspiration. And with this kind of sharing and listening with each other, it gives me energy, it gives me nourishment to continue to look deeply and to know more about myself also, and to others. And as we share that the Five Mindfulness Training, we want to practice in a way that we can be free from dogmatism, and also we don't want to practice in a way that to see ourselves as a good person or a bad person, or I need to change a little bit better or something like this. But this is more about being conscious. To have it's a wonderful to have an access to ourselves, and sometimes it's so hard to know what is happening to ourselves. So with the Five Mindfulness Training, we have a way to come back to take care what is going on, and to also see that the importance of the unpleasant feeling, the importance of our unwholesome mental formation. When we recognize our unwholesome mental formation, we know that we can breathe with it, we can look deeply and transform it into wholesome mental formation, into compassion, into joy. It's like, for example, when we are angry, we know that the first person that is suffering is ourselves.
Mhm.
And just to know that we have compassion towards ourselves, and therefore we have hope for others to take care of that anger. So I think this is our proposal, the Five Mindfulness Training, for us to practice. And at the end of this retreat, on the Sunday 28 February, there will be a ceremony, the so-called ceremony of receiving the Five Mindfulness Training. For me, it's like a party, like a celebration for those who aspire to practice it. Because when we feel like, oh, somebody is aspired to practice this, we know that, oh, there are people that is starting to take care of themselves, to start to be there for themselves. And some of us also, we want to take time. Okay, let me think about this. I don't know what is this, which is also completely fine. And some people, let's say, okay, let me study about it first, is also fine. But those of you who really aspire for to practice the 5 mindfulness training, there will be a ceremony on the 28th of February where all the community will come together and to celebrate your aspiration through a beautiful ceremony. And this is very nice to have a support that we want to take care of ourselves, and we want to be conscious about how we think, how we speak, and how we act. And having a support of the whole community, it can have like a huge power of brotherhood and sisterhood on our path. And we know that our action, our going forward, we know that we have friends around us, and we know that we can do it with the Sangha. And if you want to see more information, you can also go to your retreat platform, and Brother Duknim is preparing the page so we can see where you can find all the information, how to apply, how to submit your request in your platform. So here it is.
Oops.
Hopefully we can see.
No.
No? Okay.
Wait a second. I need to put.
Yeah.
I tried to do it again.
Yeah, let's try again.
So,
Yeah. Hopefully you can see something on your screen.
We can.
Yes, you can see. Okay. It's only us who cannot see. So go to the platform of the retreat, and you see there's one section called 5 Mindfulness Training. So over there you can find the text. You can also find the form. You can also find when you need to submit the form to the organizing team, so that we can organize to give the name of the practice, like as we have shared in the beginning of the retreat. Each of us who participate in the ceremony, you will receive a practice name.
So here's the retreat page. So you scroll down, and then you see the section of the 5 mindfulness trainings, and you can click on this one, application form for the 5 mindfulness trainings. And then here, if you can press here, click here for the Google form to open. So we encourage everyone who has a Google address to please fill in this form here. And if not, then you can, if you don't have a Google account, you can also use the PDF to send us by email. But please make sure to also send your home address and the country and the picture. Yes, thank you very much.
So this is how it looks like, the certificate of the 5 mindfulness training. So this inside there will be the trainings that we can read regularly after receiving the 5 mindfulness training. And one element that is very important is when we practice the 5 mindfulness training, we want to practice with the Sangha. We want to practice with the community. So please, after this retreat, at the end of the section of your platform, you also can find your local Sangha, people who are practicing together, and you may like to join or create one, so that you can read the 5 mindfulness training regularly to have more understanding day by day. And for those who want to renew, those who has received the ceremony, to join the ceremony before, and probably it's been a long time, and probably you have been like kind of forgotten the training, or you want to empower your practice, and you want to receive more energy of the community to practice the 5 mindfulness training, please do join the ceremony. But in this case, you don't need to make any application, because you might still have your name and your certificate. You just join in. And for those who in the past who receive only one training or receive only 2 trainings, and now you say, okay, now I commit to the next training, please also do join our ceremony. And this is quite exciting things. And then there are more things that you can find in the retreat platform to see how the ceremony will go on and how to practice touching of the earth. So I think it's enough for today, and I hope that you can continue your practice and enjoy the schedule of today. And thank you so much, all our panelists that has been here and share your practice from your heart. And I'm so happy to see all of you. I just realized that I miss our friend from many places, and your faces are very familiar to me, and we have met before, and I feel so happy to see you. And here is Brother Depin beside me, and he has some announcement for us.
Yeah, so hello dear friends. The next activity, we invite you to also practice walking meditation in your home, hopefully outside if you can. And then there's at 2:30 Paris time, we will have total relaxation, and today is with Sister Chandim. And yeah, she's been a professional singer before, so she sings very beautifully. I hope you enjoy that. And then today we have a Dharma talk by Larry Ward, a lay Dharma teacher from America. So we will meet here at 3:45 Paris time for some songs before the talk, and the talk will start at 4 p.m. So yeah, I hope you all can be there on time and enjoy. So we wish you a wonderful day, and yes, see you later.
Maybe one sound of the bell to end the session. I wish you have a good day. Enjoy your walk and enjoy the practice together.